Chapter 6, Looping Part 5. You can nest loops. You can put a loop inside a loop. An inner loop must be entirely contained in an outer loop. They can never overlap. Same thing as what we did with if statements. An if statement must be completely contained inside another if statement if you're going to nest them. So, for example, let's assume we want to print 3 mailing labels for each of 20 customers, so a total of 60 mailing labels. Our outer loop would be for customer equals 1, customer less than or equal to 20, plus customer. And then our inner loop for color equals 1, assume that each mailing label is a different color. I'm just guessing here. For color equals 1, color less than or equal to 3, plus color, output label. So we're going to go color equals 1, output label, increment color, color equals 2, output label, increment color, color equals 3, output label, increment color, color equals 4. That's beyond my ending value. That's my loop control condition is not false. And I loop back up and customer plus customer. So customer gets incremented to 2, and we enter the loop and do the whole color loop all over again. Let's take a look at what the flow chart looks like. Test of outer loop control variable. If that's true, we enter the loop and we test the inner loop control variable. If that's true, we do the body of the loop and go back and test again and do that completely until the inner loop control variable is false. And then we go back up and test the outer loop control variable again. It's super important to avoid using unnecessary operations on statements. We want to write code that's as efficient as possible. So you want to try to to think like a computer. Avoid saying, while x less than a plus b. If a and b are not changing inside the loop body, it's more efficient to say int sum equals a plus b. So to create another variable where you're going to store the sum of a and b, and then test that variable, rather than doing the arithmetic operation a plus b each time you need to test that loop. Let's summarize about loops. We looked at several different types of loops. An infinite loop, which is a loop that runs forever. We don't like those. A definite loop, which is a count-controlled loop. We also looked at an indefinite loop, which I unfortunately left off in my summary. And an indefinite loop is one that we don't know how long it's going to loop. It depends on what the user enters. And we looked at a nested loop, a loop inside a loop. You must change the loop control variable within the looping structure. Use a while loop to execute statements while some condition is true. We execute the while loop, we initialize it, we test, we alter. Initialize, test, update. Initialize, test, update. Those 3 parts are existent with every loop, not just a while loop, but also a do while and a for loop. You can use an increment operator, which is a plus. There are 2 versions, the prefix, which comes before, and the postfix, which comes after an integer variable. These are only used with integers, and it increases the variable's value by 1. And the variable is used the result is calculated and stored. So if we say plus count, for example, whatever was in count will be updated by 1. Unary operators are operators with only one operand. An example is plus, minus. They only need one operand to do their job. So those are unary operators. We also looked at binary operators. They need 2 operands. So a couple of binary operators here. The plus equals operator is a shortcut operator for arithmetic and assignment. Let's say we have count plus equals 2. It will add 2 to the variable, the value stored in count, and then store the result back inside count. It needs 2 operands. It needs a variable name on the left and either a variable or a fixed value on the right in order to be able to do its work. A for loop is a count-controlled loop. It initializes, tests, and updates in one statement. A do-while loop is a post-test loop, which tests the Boolean expression after the loop executes at least once. It's important to look at improving your loop performance. You don't want to include unnecessary operations or statements. And that's the end of Chapter 6.